Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. It is May the 25th, Monday, May the 25th to be precise. How you all doing at home, everyone? We're going to be talking about a few different stories today. We're going to be looking at Chris Smalling. United have lowered their asking price apparently so that Chris Smalling can make his move to Roma. We're going to be looking at the meetings that are going to be taking place on Wednesday for the Premier League, stepping up the contact training that's maybe coming soon. That's the next phase after what we've currently seen, which is sort of a little kick around that's been going on in the training. And we're going to be looking at how United are trying to do a little bit to help lower league clubs. So that's what's coming up. I hope you're all doing very well at home. It's a bank holiday, innit? But it's not really a bank holiday because nothing was open anyway, and I've still got to work, so it don't feel like a bank holiday, does it? Let's get into our first story. We're talking Chris Smalling, and it's a good little story, this, because there's kind of a humanity to it and a kind of a sensibleness, if that's even a word, to it, that kind of makes us look a little bit like we always tend to when we're selling players. We always tend to get the sort of minimum possible when we're selling players, don't we, at United? We've seen that down the years where obviously we're not a sort of club that sells players usually at their peak, so we're not going to be getting that much money for players, because if they were that good, we would have been able to keep hold of them because we're a top team. The only one I can think of in recent years would be Ronaldo, where we've sold him at his peak and we didn't want him to leave. But generally, when United sell players, it's because we're done with them. So that is always going to affect, obviously, the amount you get for people, because, you know, if you're selling people who are either past their prime or you've proven that they're not good enough for a top team, then you're probably not going to get that much for them, are you? So it does make sense a little bit. But let's get into this story. And it's coming from Italy. Manchester United have reportedly accepted Chris Smalling's desire to remain at Roma and have lowered their asking price to 18 million euros. First of all, in the comments, let me see, how much do you think Chris Smalling is worth? You've just got, I know it's only FIFA, but just as a, you know, in terms of a zeitgeist kind of public popularity type symbol, he has just got in the team of the season in Italy on FIFA, which again, you know, shouldn't affect transfer price, but it's an indication that he's played well, that he's seen by other people outside of just his team and just at United that he's played well. Yeah, how much do you think Chris Smalling should be worth in today's market? How much do you think Chris Smalling would be charged if he was at Roma currently and we wanted to buy him? There's my question. Multiple sources have stated that the England international is happy in Serie A and wishes to make the loan spell permanent. Roma considered the 25 million price tag to be excessive for the 30-year-old, whose contract with Manchester United runs to June 2022. So still 2 years left on his contract. According to Il Tempo newspaper, the Old Trafford side is now prepared to lower the asking price to between 18 and 20 million euros. This would give the Giallorossi a much better chance of signing Smalling on a long-term deal. He made 28 appearances for Roma this season, scoring 2 goals and providing 1 assist. So he's been a big part of what Roma have done this season. Again, 2 goals, 1 assist. He's getting forward. He gets action at the other end of the pitch as well. Ross Murphy saying 20 million, 20 to 25 million. Smalling easily 20 million. He's a decent player. Someone saying £1.50, so you know there's a bit of a difference there. He's worth about 20 million. If we wanted him from Italy, he'd be about 80 million. Yeah, you look at like Koulibaly. I know, obviously, we've talked about this before, but Koulibaly's probably done more in his career although he hasn't won more than Chris Smalling, but he's had this sort of hype around him for a long time where the transfer fee for Koulibaly would be a lot higher than that. But he's what, 28, 29, Koulibaly, and people still talking about 80 million for him. So there's a strange sort of, you know, situation that they're in there in Italy, where you kind of you send players there in Lukaku, who's looked brilliant, in Smalling, who's looked brilliant, in Ashley Young, who's looked better than he did at United, and you sort of get a feel for, oh yeah, actually there's a big standard difference, really, isn't there? And there's a reason why, other than Juventus getting in a couple of Champions League finals recently, I don't think that an Italian club has won a European trophy since Inter Milan in 2010. Certainly none have won the Champions League. So, and even that was a bit of an outlier. The Milan team was a great team. This current Juventus team is very good, but not quite top of the top, and they're miles better than everyone else in the league. And then before that, it was the sort of Milan AC team of the mid-2000s that won a Champions League. So they've kind of, the Italian league has certainly dropped off from where it was in its peak, probably late 90s, mid to late 90s. But of course, they've had good teams in that time. But again, you do just start to see that you can go over there and you can rejuvenate your career in a way that you can't really do in the Premier League. And that makes me worry slightly about the likes of Koulibaly and that kind of thing. People saying, yeah, easy to look good over there. Don't put Smalling and Koulibaly in one sentence. Well, I'm not saying that Smalling's as good as Koulibaly, but I'm just saying that, how good does Smalling look in Italy? He looks a lot closer to Koulibaly than he did when Smalling was playing in England. That's all I'll say. I don't think he's looked as good as him. I don't think he is as good as him. But if you didn't know either of those two players and you were just getting what you saw from the news and from the media and from how good they've been, it wouldn't be ridiculous to put them in the same sentence this season. And we know how good Smalling is. We know that he's not quite there in terms of the Premier League or right up to the top. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Someone's saying, how is Werner a different kind of striker from Martial? The very different system that they play at Leipzig, very different types of players, I think. Although both sort of fast, kind of aggressive strikers, I don't think they're particularly similar at all. If we sell him for 20, I want it to be in a deal with Zaniolo to come to us, maybe. Happy to take 80 million for him, let the lad have a career. If we were buying him, though, he'd be about 30 million. Yeah, I agree with you there, Ben. He's been with United for, 7-8 years? I think it's fair on him to, let him go for a bit of a cut price if it means that he's playing in a one of the better teams in Europe. And he's obviously not going to be a direct threat to United unless we face them in the Champions League or Europa League next season. Joe, Koulibaly's ball-playing skills is not comparable. Again, I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying they have both been two of the sort of excellent, defenders in the league this season. And we know Chris Smalling's limitations, we know that, but what I'm saying is we don't know actually as much as we think we do about Koulibaly, because really, who's seen him play that much? I've seen him play maybe half a dozen times, and I'm sure some of you have seen him play more than that, but I'm sure a lot of people have seen him play roughly the same as me, where you see him in the Champions League a few times, you watch a few highlights, you hear a few rumours being talked about him, you see a few, I'll keep an eye out for him, because not many people are sat watching 35 games of Serie A per season, especially 35 Napoli games per season. I'm just saying it seems easier to have a real standout defensive season in Serie A than it does in most of the leagues. If we had a testimonial for Smalling, would you go? Yeah. I don't think he's been at the club for 10 years though, has he? Or has he? Has he been there since 2010? I don't think he has. What will happen to Rashford when Werner comes? I don't think we need to worry about Werner coming, to be honest. Anyway, let's move on to our second story then. Second story today, we're going to be looking at United waiving the loan fees, which is probably a good thing. I mean, it is a good thing, isn't it? It's a nice gesture. United have agreed to waive loan fees for some of their young stars in a bid to help cash-strapped clubs through the coronavirus crisis as clubs lower down the food chain. Great. Feel the economic impact of the virus outbreak. United chiefs have accepted a £130,000 loss rather than demand fees owed for the three transfers. Goalkeeper Joel Pereira and Kieran O'Hara are alone at Hearts and Burton Albion respectively, while Bolton currently have midfielder Ethan Hamilton in their ranks. As reported by the Mail, members of United hierarchy have decided it would be unfair to put further financial pressure on those clubs when they already are having difficulties with losses from a lack of match day income. United make good to use the loan system as a way to offer valuable first-team experience to their promising academy talents. Left-back Borthwick Jackson is still on loan with League Two side Oldham, though it's not known whether United will waive a fee on that transfer or if they are even owed a fee. I think there will be a lot of clubs considering administration to save themselves. I do think there is a looming nightmare for EFL clubs, whether it's up to 60, I'm not sure. That was Gary Neville talking there about the sort of problems that are going to be faced by the lower league clubs as a result of coronavirus. And it's good that United have done this. I think obviously £130,000 isn't sort of big money to United, and it could be the difference between 5 or 6 members of staff at a lower league club keeping their jobs or not for a year. So I think it's probably it's a good gesture, and not really the same as when we always say, we always get done for transfers. I think loan fees are a completely different kettle of fish, aren't they? And I think there's no problem with waiving that. I think it's good for everyone. I think it makes United look good. I think it doesn't really, it doesn't really hinder our finances particularly, and it helps out clubs that, may well need that kind of money, like I said, to keep an extra handful of staff employed, which is obviously a good thing if that can be if those jobs can be saved when and where possible. Smalling joined United in 2010. I knew it was around 10 years, but I didn't think he quite got the 10-year mark. He might get a testimonial. He's won the Premier League. He's won 2 Premier Leagues then, has he? Why would he not get a testimonial? United's longest serving player. Give him a testimonial. What if we say we'll do that if they take some of our players on loan? It's a good gesture, but we can still benefit. Do you mean we send more players to lower league sides? That might be a good idea. That's a good thing. Now more youth players can go on loan for first team football. Phil Jones got a testimonial. Wow. Unless that's been announced since we started this news video, I don't think he has had a testimonial, has he? He certainly hasn't had one, and I haven't seen any plans for Chris Mullin for Phil Jones to have a testimonial. But correct me if I'm wrong. He may well have been given one in the last 11 minutes. Maybe Phil Jones. They've announced that Phil Jones will be having a testimonial, although I do doubt it. People talking about Martial. A lot of people. There's always a lot of talk about Martial in the comments. There's a very sort of adamant and interested section of the fans when it comes to Martial, and there's nothing wrong with that. Jones and Smalling need a joint testimonial. That would be good, wouldn't it? Although there'd be too many Chucker brothers like photoshops with Smalling and Jones's face on it. But has a joint testimonial ever been done before? Because I would like to see that. Chris Smalling and Phil Jones joint testimonial. And the nets are tiny, so neither of them concede any goals. That'd be great. I'd love that. Joe, any news on Gomez? He can be our Bruno/Mata. His vision and ball control is that good. No recent updates on Gomez. He's drifting toward the end of his contract. It sounds as though he may be getting a bit of advice that he's better off elsewhere, but we'll see. But nothing since we spoke to Dave Pritt last week. If you haven't seen that, check out the podcast with David Pritt. I think it was last Tuesday, where we talked, David Pritt, who's our sort of academy expert, we talked a lot about the Gomez transfer, what was going on with that. If you want more updates on that, that's the best place to check them out. Would you agree to sell Pogba, Pereira, Joel Pereira, Lingard, Smalling, Jones, Delo, Rojos and Sanchez for a total of 250 million to 300 million? I don't know how you're getting that much money for them. You're probably getting 80 for Pogba, 15 for Pereira, 5 for Pereira, 15 for Jesse, 15 for Smalling, 10 for Jones at best, 15 for Dalot. I don't know, is that 250 million? That's probably more, it seems more like 180 to me. Not that I would turn that down necessarily, but I don't think we're going to be getting 300 million for them lot. What's the future for Mata? I think he'll just keep playing in the same role he has been doing now, personally. A joint testimonial, it would be great, wouldn't it? A joint testimonial would be so good. That'd be so good. And you could have two half tickets. So like one side is Jones, one side is Smalling. And if you collect them both, you put them together and you get free football or something. I want Ibrahimovic back to replace Igalo. Isn't Ibrahimovic 58 years old? He's got to be close. He's nearly in his 50s, isn't he? Let's move on to our final story then. And this is, we're looking here at the meeting that's going to be taking place on Wednesday. Let me just get this up. I thought I had the tab open and ready, but I don't. This came out a couple of days ago. No, it's not that one. Where are we? Anyway, I know the details. So the details are, there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday. Excuse me. There's going to be a meeting on Wednesday that discusses between the Premier League and the clubs, obviously the Premier League, that discusses this phase 2, what is known as phase 2 of training, of returning to a usual schedule. They're talking about contact training. So it's currently, obviously I'm sure most of you know this, but currently the situation is that the training is social distancing. So everyone's 2 meters away. there's no contact, everything gets disinfected, the pitch gets disinfected, the balls get disinfected, the nets, the posts, all that stuff. The next stage and the next sort of implemented schedule after this one is going to be a more contact, more traditional training. So basically what we've been used to for the last 150 years, heading more towards that, but it's only going to be put in place if strict medical procedures are upheld. So I think basically the first round of testing that has sort of unearthed a few, I think maybe around 10 or a dozen or so positive tests at this point, that sort of testing has to continue. I think that round of testing that we've just seen is basically paving the way and allowing this next set of slightly more relaxed rules, of slightly more kind of lenient positions in terms of physicality and contact and that sort of thing. So I think we've sort of entered that first, everyone's passed through the door. Do you know when you go swimming and there's that little pool at the start and it's got a bit of water and you're meant to rinse your feet in that before you go in the main pool? We're basically, the Premier League clubs are basically in that little pool now. They're washing their feet, making sure, you know, all the verruca plasters don't fall off, there's no problems physically, there's no problems medically, and once you've gone through that, then you can go into the main pool, and we're heading towards that main pool contact training. So that's the next stage. And we'll find out more on Wednesday about that, so I'll obviously be keeping you updated on that as the news comes out. People saying the FA Cup has been cancelled. Is that just happened? That must have been announced in the last 30 seconds, if so. I don't know. I don't know where people are seeing that. 2 people saying that the FA Cup has been cancelled, but I don't know where you're seeing that. I haven't seen that. But if it has, that is upsetting. There's only 7 games left, isn't there? In there, 4 quarterfinals, 2 semi-finals, and a final left. Surely we can fit 7 matches in. Let me just check on Twitter see if this has just been announced, because that would be upsetting. FA Cup. Or are you just fooling me? You're tricking me here. I don't see that anywhere. I don't see that the FA Cup's been cancelled anywhere. Although I could be wrong. Yeah. Are people just making that up? I think people are just making that up. How is it not say placed? Oliver, let me know where that's been announced that the FA Cup's been cancelled. How is it not safe to play 7 games of the FA Cup, but it's safe to play 92 games for the league? Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it? It doesn't make sense. Apparently, it's just speculation. Obviously, there's been rumours that the FA Cup might get cancelled, but it's not been officially announced, as far as I'm aware. If the FA Cup does get cancelled, it can only be down to money, can't it? Because, like I said, there's 7 games left to play, and these 92 Premier League games. Again, it hasn't been cancelled. Yeah, I think there's rumours that it might be, but I thought it'd potentially been announced officially there, but obviously it hasn't. People talk about Tony because as soon as we're linked to an attacking player, you throw his name under the bus and none of your golden boys. Interesting. I don't think I've ever thrown Martial's name under the bus in relation to any striker we've been linked with. Certainly not this summer, because I don't think we've been linked with anyone better than him. So I don't think that's true what you've said there, but thanks for your opinion. It's not been cancelled. Yeah, I didn't think it had been. It may well be though. Interesting, the FA Cup could be played in September. Yeah, they were talking when it comes to the European Cups about playing like a sort of mini tournament, weren't they? Somewhere, because you can't have everyone travelling around Europe, surely. Surely they'll have to sort of centralise it and play all the games. Maybe sort of where would be the middle of Europe, maybe sort of Germany, Poland area. So if you're people coming from Portugal and Russia and England kind of all have a roughly similar journey. No, I would doubt they'd hold it in the the east of Russia or something like that. But yeah, somewhere central in Europe that everyone's got a sort of 500-mile journey to, and then kind of keep people there would make the most sense to me. But the European competitions, despite their sort of glamour and prestige, they seem the most difficult to complete to me, just because you're having so many people crossing different countries and taking things in different places, and there's travel bans and all sorts of stuff going on all over the place, so who knows. Anyway, that's going to be all from me today. We're going to be back this afternoon for Howson's Brew. It should be a good one as well. We're getting, hopefully, we'll be getting Jay on there to talk about his new podcast as well, so that should be very fun. So make sure you check that out at 4 o'clock on Stretford Paddock. Hope we're all having a great day. The weather is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. So make sure you all have a good day. Like I said, 4 o'clock, Stretford Paddock, Howson's Brew. Thanks for joining me. See you in a bit.